Welcome to the Cool Tools Show. I'm Mark Frauenfelder, Editor-in-Chief of Cool Tools, a website of tool recommendations written by our readers. You can find us at cool-tools.org. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin Kelly, founder of Cool Tools. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, it's great to be here.
In each episode of the Cool Tools Show, Kevin and I talk to a guest about some of his or her favorite uncommon and uncommonly good tools they think others should know about.
Our guest this week is Austin Kleon. Austin is the author of Steal Like an Artist and other bestsellers about creativity. His books have been translated into dozens of languages and have sold over 1 million copies worldwide. He lives in Austin, Texas, with his wife and 2 sons. And that's always been like a thing. I've been thinking, like, I have always imagined you as living in Austin, but then I'm like, no, that can't be right. I'm just like inflating his name. But you do.
I'm, the older I get, the more I believe in nominal determinism. I really, because I know, I know lots of walkers who like to walk.
Yeah.
Mark is a real Mark.
Yeah. My daughter's dentist is Dr. Toth. T-O-T-H.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always say, my mom just wishes she had named me Cincinnati, so I had to stay closer.
Well, anyway, Austin, we're so delighted that you're joining us. We're fans of your work. And I only recently discovered that you actually are a tool maven. And so we are really interested in hearing what you want to share with our listeners.
Well, I'm delighted, and I think we have a mutual appreciation society today. So I've been looking forward to this.
Cool. Tell us about your waterproof notebooks.
So, in the history of Austin, Texas, there has never been a worse time to put in a pool. It's always been kind of a stupid idea to put a pool in, but this is historically the worst time to put in a pool. And
because of drought, you mean?
A couple of things. There was a huge Texas storm this February that destroyed a lot of equipment. Due to the pandemic, everyone wants a pool. So you have absurdly high demand and really low supply. So the supply chain is all messed up. So it's been a nightmare, but our pool is finished. And so the tool I love the most, other than the pool itself, is I am nuts about these waterproof notebooks that I found. So the first brand is there's a thing called Aqua Notes. And this comes in like a pad with suction cups on the back. I keep one of those in the shower because I'm one of those really cliche people who gets ideas in the shower. I'm told I'm a Pisces. I think it's my moon sign or something. But anyway, I don't know if you're into that. So anyway, water, though, seems to be a thing that really brings the ideas. So I have this Aqua Notes that I think my wife bought these for me, so we have this Aqua Notes pad up in the shower. Mm-hmm. But then for the pool, I discovered this brand of notebooks called Write in the Rain. So it's RITE in the rain. And I believe these are mostly used by naturalists and outdoors people. I've usually referred to myself as an indoorsman. So I keep this pad out on the side of the pool. And when my kids get really, really bad in the pool, we stop and I'll either draw a comic of them in the notebook, or we'll do a pool poem together. So I'll say, okay, I need an A word, I need a B word, I need a C word, and we'll make a poem out of it. So, I'm a big believer that, making space is a way to kind of invite creative stuff. And so I literally think the dumb act of having a waterproof notebook on the side of the pool actually invites me to come over and use it for something, right?
Just because it's there.
Just because it's there. And I'm not a fantastic swimmer, but I love the water. And I was really inspired by reading about Oliver Sacks. He used to swim and he would get out and, drip all over his notebook and scribble. And so I really wanted, I wanted to have that. And I just use a plain old pencil because pencil will pretty much write in any condition.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
yeah,
I was going to ask you. So you don't write with pen. So this paper will take pencil, and is the idea that you could write when it was like soaking wet, or write underwater, or I mean, are there limits to the waterproofness of it?
if it gets real wet, like soaking wet, you have to press really hard.
Okay.
And you don't get much, but it will definitely withstand. I've left it outside, like it'll get dirty, but it won't get like it won't wash away the pencil. And that's something I learned a while back about, because I'm sort of I don't know, like I'm sort of a nut about pens too and pencils, but I'm also somebody who, once I find my thing, I'm like content with it. I'm not constantly looking for new stuff. But one thing I found out is I used to use Flair pens a lot. Those, I forget what the brand is. Those, I think it might be Pilot.
Parker?
I don't remember what they're called, what the brand is, but they're called Flair pen, and they're felt tip. And I realized too late that they are water-based ink. And so I've put a notebook through the wash before. And that was a really
that's a wake-up call.
That's a wake-up call, because if you look at it and you're like, okay, everything in waterproof is gone,
right?
But everything in pencil is still there,
and
everything with a really permanent ink is sort of still there too. So that was like a big wake-up call. So now, even though I love Flairs, I can't write with them anymore.
Right. One of the I don't know, I guess one of the advantages of getting really old is that I realized that things I never really thought about don't last very long. Like, for instance, I remember I was sealing up our windows and it had 25-year seal. I thought, oh, that'll last forever.
I'll be dead by then. Yeah.
It's like, I've been around
25 years.
25 years of come and gone, and they really are starting to need it. And it's like, the same thing. I did a notebook with Flair pens, and it wasn't that it got wet. Even just the moisture in the air would cause it to fade and kind of like melt. And so at the time, it seemed indelible, and it was kind of in the short term. But I pay more attention to the long term now, including like, I want 100-year caulking. I don't want 25 years.
Exactly.
We just put a metal roof on our house.
There you go.
And this guy was like, "Oh, this house will outlast. That roof will outlast the house now," or whatever he said.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way. I mean, I think all the time about like when we watched the second Blade Runner, I had this thought where I thought, the real hero of this story is paper, because everything else got wiped out, but anything that was on paper like survived this big crash. So I think about that all the time now. And I think about how many of my heroes, hundreds of years ago, their notebooks are still around. Like, you can still read Thoreau's notebook, and that is something where, I just can't let go of my diaries. I just can't. They exist in the world, and they'll probably last. I mean, barring fire or flood, right? They'll outlast any computer I have.
The only problem I have with my diaries and journals is that I am unable to read my handwriting the next hour. I mean, I literally, just last night, I made some notes and I looked this morning and I can't read what I wrote. It's like my handwriting is just disintegrated completely. And there are kind of scribbles, and that person was very earnest, whoever wrote that, but that was me. So I guess, penmanship and things like that probably are more important if you want to think about paper. And I probably need to practice my penmanship. I should probably get out those practice books and start to do my O's and whatnot, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to read anything.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it works. I mean, we're homeschooling the boys right now, and we have all those things. And I did a version of it when I was growing up. I used to copy my favorite musician's handwriting. So
I love that. Who was it?
First, it was Phil Collins.
How is his handwriting?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's that loopy European cursive is completely different than American cursive.
Yeah.
So and I always loved actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, Phil Collins has probably influenced my books more than a lot of people, because I always loved, when I was growing up, the Phil Collins records had his handwriting on it.
Oh.
And I always thought that was so cool when I was growing up. And I always, so really, if you look at the back of Steal Like an Artist, it looks like an album track list. I mean, it's like 10 things. And I feel like that was probably, where it came from. So it's Phil Collins, and that got really into like Jimi Hendrix's handwriting at a certain point. So, and John Lennon's handwriting is actually a lot like Phil Collins, which makes me wonder if there was something about the British educational system and how they taught penmanship.
That's probably the only thing they taught was just penmanship.
Yeah, right. so it's like, but I'm a guy who now, like, people ask me, can I get your handwriting as a font? And I'm like, no, get your own damn handwriting. I've worked my whole life for this.
Yeah.
My favorite handwriting is the way that Japanese high school girls learn how to do English characters. Have you seen their writing?
Oh, I have to see this.
It's really great.
I mean, is it like with the hearts for the dots?
No, just the way that the lettering is something. There's just something about it that just has a really nice look.
But it's all of a style. I mean, they're all kind of similar.
It's all very similar, and it's very clear and it's clean. But there's also something that's kind of warm and expressive about it at the same time. They just, whoever is teaching penmanship to them is like, it's amazing.
There's a beautiful video that I posted a while back. I think it's still up. I can send to y'all. But it was a video of a French cursive class, and these kids were all like, they were drawing in the air, and this really hip looking teacher was like leading them through these drills. And I thought, this is magic to me. Of course, then I have a friend online who, she wrote a whole book about how handwriting doesn't matter. And she was like, well, that's just you, but I was like, no, I think there's something really beautiful. And I'm super into this lady. One of my hero cartoonists is this woman named Linda Barry. Who you guys know.
I love her.
Right. So Linda is a great proponent of writing by hand and the power of writing by hand. And I'm probably, whether she likes it or not, I'm one of her disciples. Right. And so she has influenced me tremendously. And so, I just really believe in the power of writing by hand. But I'm also a guy that types a lot too. So
yeah. So you're teaching your sons penmanship. That's how you began. This is one of their homeschooling courses, is penmanship.
Yeah. Well, my son, when he was younger, grips the pen in this really weird way, where like if you made a fist, and then you looked and the pencil was sticking out of the fist to the left. That's how he holds his pen still. So I'm trying to break him of that. And so, but I always encouraged him. I never corrected him because I was like, well, maybe he'll come up. I mean, he used to draw like Picasso. I mean, a lot of kids do. A lot of 4-year-olds.
Which Picasso? Like the early Picasso or the later Picasso?
Any of them, man. He used to draw the way, his drawings, the drawings he was able to get out of that weird grip were so gorgeous. He's a big music freak like me. And so he used to draw musical instruments, all the instruments of the orchestra. He would draw them, and I have these beautiful drawings. And so I never corrected him. Of course, now he's 8, and it's like, well, if you ever go to school again, some teacher's gonna want you. Plus, you're gonna get carpal tunnel or whatever it is trying to write like this. So we're trying to break him right now.
I think younger people do hold pencils differently. My daughter, who's about to go to college, holds it like that, like just in her fist, and she's able to like do amazing handwriting, and she draws and beautiful drawings. And I think you just, whatever you get used to, you end up being able to do something really well. Like, people who play violin with their feet because they don't have arms.
Well, if he was still drawing like Picasso, I'd be okay with it. But something happened on the way to heaven. No, it's funny. There's just some magical thing about 4 and 5. And then like my 6-year-old still draws all the time, but the 8-year-old has moved to music now, and that's what he spends all his time on, and so that's wonderful in its own way. But
right. Well, I'd like to hear more about the homeschooling, but let's hear about your second tool choice for us right now.
Well, it's very since we were just talking about my children, this is this is very applicable. Foam earplugs, just plain old foam earplugs. You can get them in a big box for Father's Day. That's when I get them, and that's like they've got like 300 pairs or whatever. I am obsessed. There's a guy that just died. His name is Murray Schafer, and he was a Canadian composer. And he wrote a couple of books about music and music education. One of the books is called Ear Cleaning. And one of the things that Schafer said that just blew my mind, it's such a simple observation, but it's so good, is that you can close your eyes, but you can't close your ears. You know, your body has a device for closing your eyes, but there's no device to shut off your auditory input. And so it kind of blew my mind when I read, I was like, wow, that's really true. So, on the one hand, I love my Sony MDRs or my Sony wireless Bluetooth noise canceling headphones. I love those, but I'm a guy who I can listen to jazz and classical, but I can't listen to music with words when I'm working. So the plain old earplugs, they do the job. And I feel like they will turn almost any situation into a potential, what Joseph Campbell called a bliss station.
So like, wait a minute, I'm a little confused. So you put on words with music on your earphones, and you have earplugs so you don't hear it?
No. I just meant that instead of wearing noise canceling headphones, sometimes I'll just put in earplugs. Right. Yeah, sorry. Okay. But I do love those Sony noise cancelers. I do love those, but I can't. Every once in a while, you're doing a kind of work that you want to kind of not have anything going on. And I just think they're just such a simple. The other thing is, when I used to travel, I mean, they're a godsend in like hotel rooms and then on the planes and stuff. And so I would sleep with them. I just think I think I'm a guy who I really, really appreciate technology that's just does one simple thing, and an earplug is just that. It's like it does this one thing. And they're disposable and cheap, and I love them.
Have you ever tried those silicone rubber earplugs they're almost like a wax, and so you put them in, and they just kind of almost like melt into your ears, and it's a perfect seal. It could. Some people think it's too good, but we were staying in an Airbnb in Montreal, and it was like above a nightclub, and it was like so loud, and I put those things in, and it just like cuts it out completely. It was great.
I'm gonna have to try them. I mean, when I was growing up, I'm trying, because I have a son who's really into music. I have mild tinnitus, and so I'm very big now on. I'm like one of those old guys that's like, put earplugs in. Do not go to a show without earplugs, because I played so much music when I was a kid, and I wish I had. So now I have this, this ringing that's sort of, constant now. And so I don't know. But I just really I threw the earplugs on there because I wanted to be like, well, actually, I really like my Apple Watch and I love my AirPods, but everyone likes that, right? Yeah. But I wanted to put something, really basic and simple.
Yeah. It's good to hear your reasons why too.
Yeah.
Right. So, your third choice is a webcam, it looks like.
So my third choice, I wanted to do something high tech because I was like, well, we're talking about cool tools. This thing has changed my life. So this is actually a piece of software. And the name of the software is Camo, Camo. And I think it's by a company named Reincubate. And what this software does is you run it on your iPhone and then you run it on your computer and it turns your iPhone into a webcam. And it is the best webcam I've found. I've bought a $200 Logitech fancy 4K webcam. Doesn't look anything as good as just I think this is like an iPhone 10 maybe or something. Like just an off the rack, whatever iPhone you get right now. And it looks so much better than any webcam I've seen. And it's that thing where it's like, we're all on screen now so much. And I think the yearly license for like HD is $40 or something like that. And I'm obsessed, I guess, with, I really like having things that can I like situations in which you can repurpose old tech for, new situations, And so I wanted to include this because I'm always thinking about like my turntable, which is 15 years old now, and how you can plug that into any amp and it still sounds great. I love this, I like modular situations. Like my scanner is 15 years old, my old Epson scanner that I used to scan everything. It's
cool.
It still works, So I like this idea of like having reusing technology, like having modular things so you don't have to replace it. I don't like stuff. The older I get, the less interested I am in things that do a bunch of different things. Like I just want something that does one thing really well. And of course the smartphone is the opposite of that, right? It's like, it does everything and it'll be obsolete in 2 years. You have to get a new one or whatever.
So the way that the camo works, is it going over Wi-Fi? Does it require a cord to connect between the two?
I believe the way I use it, I stick it in airplane mode, and then I use an actual lightning cable and plug it right into the computer. And that way I don't know if you can do it with Wi-Fi. That would be cool though, because what you could potentially do then is use it as like a spying device or you could use it as like stick it in the backyard to look at owls or something.
But the way you're using it is like for a Zoom thing.
Yeah, for Zoom. Exactly.
And you can go in either portrait or landscape mode?
I think you can do all kinds of, you can zoom in with it. You can change the lighting. You can, if you get a regular old ring, I have a little ring light tripod with an iPhone attachment. Right. And so I just stick it on there. I turn the ring light on, and it pretty much works with the default settings. But you can, you can do the depth of field, so you could make yourself clear and the background blurry. You can do all kinds of stuff.
And you're using the outside-facing camera of the phone, so you're not really seeing the screen.
No, I turn it. I use the outside facing because it looks so much better.
Right.
And so I but then I can see it on my laptop screen, and I can see it on Zoom.
Right.
And it's really been nice. I really.
And is it a subscription or is it just a one-time app?
I would have to look. I think might be a license at this point, so you might have to pay every year, but I do so many Zoom events now that it's worth it to me. But I would have to check.
Okay. Camo. Turning your phone into the best webcam.
Best webcam I've seen. It looks
I guess if you have one of the newer models that does portrait, does it actually do the kind of blurring in the background?
I think that is a beta feature on the software. But I would, again, I didn't look right before we talked. But that has been a piece of software that has changed my pandemic. It's made it a little bit better and made me look a little.
It does says bokeh portrait mode. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, Austin, this is great. Let's see. Your fourth one is a little bit larger. So tell us about that one.
So my fourth one, I wanted to go big, and I wanted to make the case for having a piano in the home. We bought an old 49 bungalow here in Austin last October. And I had been without a piano for a while. I went out and bought a used piano right before my kids were born because I wanted them to live in a house with a piece of furniture you could make music on. And so But then we moved houses a couple times. I had to get rid of one. And so when we bought this new house, the first piece of furniture I bought was there's a piano store right across Burnett Road here in Austin. I bought a used Yamaha U1, which is the most kind of like, that's like, I'm trying to think, it's like a Honda or something. It's like the Honda Accord of pianos. It's just like, I think someone else would probably be like, yeah, right. But yeah, it's like a late 90s Honda Accord of pianos. It's just like a good, solid, plays lots of different stuff. I like pianos that are a little bit more dark in tone, so I'm kind of more of a kawaii guy, but I want to this is just a beautiful thing.
How much would a used one like that cost?
This one cost me $4,000. You could probably get one for $3 to $4, depending on the price. A brand new one will run you $11 or $12.
Okay.
This one, it's a '83, same vintage as me. And what's kind of interesting, you have to be a little careful. You got to get them from like a reputable dealer, because what I've been told is that in Japan, there's an aging population, of course, in Japan. So there's a lot of people unloading their pianos. And so they get them, they refurbish them, and they ship them to America. Huh. And so there's a little bit of controversy about the gray market or whatever with pianos, but I would like to focus less on the model, more than just, I find that having a piano in the home is just it's just one of those magical things. And I don't know if y'all listen to Billie Eilish at all, the superstar pop singer. She talked a lot in some interviews about how her parents just always had a piano. I think they had a couple of pianos in the house, and just how she felt like a house without a piano isn't even a home. And of course she's a musician. But for me, as someone who's a musician, having the piano in the home it's just my favorite piece of furniture in the house.
So do you like kind of wander over once a day and play a few, or how do you actually use it yourself?
So I actually have my fingers on it right now, because I literally sit in between my desk and the piano, because my studio isn't built yet. We're building a studio out in the backyard. And so I actually have my office in our little music room at the front of the house. And so I will stop working, I'll turn around, and I'll play some Bach. And my kids have an open invitation. They are allowed to come in here and play on the piano unless I'm doing a podcast. So they come in here, and they love they're learning the Mario theme. They love Nintendo and stuff, so they're doing all that. So that's and I think there's something particularly magical about pianos for little people, because if you're standing up, if you're like 3 or 4 feet tall and you're standing up, you walk right up to a piano and it's like a magical height for you. The keys are like right there in front of you. Yeah. So it's this very like accessible. I have very vivid memories of going to visit my grandmother, and she had an old piano in the farmhouse, and I would just gravitated towards it because it's right there. It's like eye level, and you can't help but touch it. Mm-hmm. You just want to go to it, and that's what I guess it's kind of, that's a nice loop back to the waterproof notebook on the side of the pool. You want to go to it. I like tools that invite you, like you want to use them. They almost like they call to you and they make you want to work, or in this place.
We had kids growing up in the kitchen. We had a low kind of kids level easel that had butcher paper on it, just a roll of butcher paper. It was like, paper, use as much as you want. Just like, just draw on it, throw it away, whatever. It's like there's infinite supply of paper. Please draw or paint.
We bought more big, huge things of paper from Costco and I tell other parents that, I'm like, look, just let them go,
right.
Just let them go.
Yeah. So we had that in the kitchen area and they could and it's the same philosophy that you were, is make it open and inviting and abundant, maybe is the word.
Yes.
You want to have abundant possibilities or opportunities. I love, so yeah, the piano. But now, you think that's better than having a keyboard in their bedroom?
I think that whatever you have is great. But if you can swing a piano, there's something, you don't have to turn it on. Yeah, you do have to tune it. So, we do have an electric keyboard though, too. So we've got all kinds of stuff around here, but I think anything is great. Any musical instrument that you can have at the ready that is available and is not off limits. My parents didn't play music, so I had to beg to get my instruments, And so I just think that whatever you want your kids to do, having it around and having it available, in some ways, an old instrument is just like having all that butcher paper, right? It's like, here it is, use it.
Yeah.
So, tell us about your recent projects and what you're up to, and where people can hear more about what you are doing.
I would love to. So I am in this I cannot believe this, but we are in the process of finalizing the 10th anniversary of Steal Like an Artist, which cannot believe.
Oh my God. That seems new.
I know. And so, Steal Like an Artist is just a little bit older than my, Steal Like an Artist came out in March and my first son was born in October. So it's a weird time for me thinking about this, but yeah, so there's going to be a 10th anniversary. It's finally going to be in hardcover, which is really fun. That'll come out in March next year.
Nice. And will it have anything new or different in it?
It has, this is what the afterword is about. Does a book still belong to you 10 years later when it's found this readership? I feel very strongly that it's not even my book anymore, that it's become everyone else's book. And so it was an interesting, I had fun writing the afterword. So the afterword is really what's new and the format. But it's kind of the same. There's not a lot that's changed in it. And that's sort of what I write the afterword about, is just about how strange it is to have a piece of work go out in the world and have a life of its own. And how it's really the readers that make a book, that, an author sort of brings a book into the world, but a reader really gives it whatever life it's going to have. And so that's been a fun meditation for me. We just put out last year, we did the trilogy, which is my book, Steal Like an Artist, the sequel, Show Your Work, and the last one, Keep Going. So it's the black book, the yellow book, and the blue book. We did those in an audiobook last year, and that was really tricky because they're such visual books and I'm such a visual guy. So trying to get those all together in an audiobook was interesting. So
it would be a challenge. So what did you do when you came to things that were visual? Did you point people to go look at it, or did you come up with an alternative?
Well, we basically subtracted.
Okay.
It was basically a subtraction thing. There were a few things that I rewrote to be prose, but it was funny how much I actually felt kind of weird about it. The illustrations in the books almost are like accompaniment in a weird way. So you still get the melody and the flow without them. It's just a different experience. So yeah, it was weird. I mean, we did a couple of things where I would like translate an illustration into prose, but mostly we cut. And so that was interesting. And so that was a fun project. Of course, the thing that's always ongoing with me that people seem to really like is my weekly newsletter. I've been doing that since 2013, I think, now that newsletters are the big deal, and that's my favorite thing I do online. So every Friday, every Friday I send out a list of 10 things I think are worth sharing. And it's stuff I'm reading, stuff I'm looking at, stuff I'm listening to, watching, stuff I've written. And so I do that every week, and that's free. And it goes out to a pretty significant amount of people now.
Yeah, I love your newsletter.
Yeah, I do
you.
too. And Mark and I, we do a weekly newsletter, which have 6 items, 2 from each of us, and I always pat myself on the back after doing 2 every week. And
is this recommendo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love recommendo.
And doing 10 every week is like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a job.
Oh,
a full-time job.
It's silly. I mean, there's part of me that's like, are you still doing this? But it is kind of a job, but it's weird. It's become my ritual. It's like my weekly ritual of looking back and like figuring out where I've been and what I've done and stuff. And so I can't let go of it.
Do you ever go back to them yourself? Some of the old ones.
If
you're researching something.
Yeah, every year I go back and I look at what I do. I'm a list maker, so I do a top 100 every year where I do like, here were my favorite 100 things this year, and they can be watching fire.
I've missed those. Where do you release the top 100? Where do they go?
The first of the year they come out.
Oh, you mean the newsletter at the weekly?
So it'll be like the first newsletter of the year, and then they all live on my blog. So if you just type top 100 into austinkleon.com, you'll find them all.
Cool.
And they're like diaries. They're and they're everything from like something my kid said to like watching owls out in the backyard to watching the White Lotus or whatever, whatever it is, So it's like those end up being my favorite portrait of my year. And I've actually had people write to me and say, you've inspired me to start doing this. And it's like my favorite thing. It's like my way of marking the year. And I'm a guy who I've become really obsessed with cyclical time and going back to these notions. I feel like, Kevin, you'll appreciate, like, I know from what you've written that, a big struggle of my life is to get back into that, like the notion of cyclical time and returns and seasons and cycles. And I feel like doing the yearly, lists and the weekly to a certain extent. I mean, a week is weird because it's so arbitrary. It's not really connected to anything natural.
Right. It is weird if you think about where the came from, because there's no seasonal climate, geological or biological reason for a week.
No, like months have the moon cycles.
Have the moon, right.
And days seasons,
are,
but the week has no real biological or natural connection. So it's strange to do something weekly. So that's like sort of the man-made thing, I guess. But then, going around the sun is a different.
I don't have very many regrets in my life, but the one little tiny regret is that we didn't, as a family, do more rituals with the kids, rituals by things that we just did on repeat for the sake of doing them. And because they have become so large in the kids' lives and their memories and their everything. The few little ones we had, pancakes every Sunday morning without fail, they're like touchstones. They've become these huge things that they kind of come back to and find comfort in just thinking and remembering them, even if we're not doing them now till they're not here. But doing more of those kinds of things, little kind of family rituals, I really missed doing more of those, and we should have done more. And I would encourage anybody to do more if they have kids.
And the more arbitrary, the better. I think. Yes,
exactly.
Right. We have Friday, so we're recording this on Friday night. It is Friday night pizza night. We have Spaghetti Monday. Like we're a big. My wife's part Italian, so we're big. Like, we're about the meals around here. But pizza night's funny because on Twitter, I'll often post like pizza night and I'll post a picture. And if you search, I love using Twitter's search function now that it actually does something. So you can type in pizza night from Austin Kleon. You can see every time I've tweeted pizza night.
That's so cool.
If you go back far enough, it changes. Like the setting changes, what we're watching changes. So it's almost, I almost I love the ritual, but I also try to take a picture when we're doing pizza night of like what we're watching, because I know like right now it's like Paddington 2, and in a couple of years it'll be Jurassic Park, and it's like you'll have this marker of like how the family life has changed. But I deeply believe in rituals, and the more arbitrary the better. Pizza night is good enough.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the little things you do, whatever day it is a year, 8 day or whatever. It's I think you're right. You make them all about the process, and it's like Burning Man. Burning Man was always unabashedly that we're burning the man this year so that we can burn it next year.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, people forget that, right? It's like the Christmas tree in a sense. Like,
exactly.
We cut this Christmas tree down, and it's going to die, and next year we'll get a new one. It's like, I love that now, and I think that's my favorite thing about having a family is I like feeling like I'm in a gang. I like having a little gang, and it's fun.
I've never heard that. Is so fantastically great. What a way to end this podcast, which we unfortunately have to do. But thank you, Austin, for a fabulous set of cool tools and a conversation we could go on for hours, and I hope that we can reconnect again soon.
This was my pleasure. Thank you both.
Hey everybody, it's your host Mark, and I wanted to thank you for listening to the Cool Tools Show. And I also wanted to let you know that we've got a lot more going on at Cool Tools than just this podcast. We also have the Cool Tools website, which has a new tool review every day, and you can get there by going to cool-tools.org. We also have 4 different newsletters that you can subscribe to, and you can subscribe to those from the Cool Tools page. We have this podcast that you're listening to right now. We also have a YouTube channel where we review tools. Check that YouTube channel out by going to youtube.com/cooltools. And one of the things I'd like to ask you is if you're really enjoying everything that we are producing, go to our Patreon page and support us there. You can sign up and give us as little as $1 a month, and that would mean a lot to us. The money that we get from Patreon goes towards a lot of things. We transcribe our podcast interviews so that you can read them online. We pay for editing of our podcasts and for our videos. We pay our contributors. We have video production costs. We have equipment costs. We have hosting costs. And the money you give us through Patreon also goes to support Cool Tools Lab. Anything you give is a huge help. And one of the things that we do is if you are a contributor to Patreon, we'll give you a shout out on air. And so I have a few people here to thank this week. Mark Lyanaj, Micah Gates, Monty Zukowski, Patrick James McNally, Robert Cohen, Scott, Spence Lloyd, Steve Avery, Steve Golden, Steve Levine, Tom Hess, William Phillips, Aaron Nipper, Durab Patel, Glenn Mercer, Jay Walker, Jeff Bonner, Ryan Jarrell, Pat Daly, Patrick Kennedy, Troy Wallet, Mike Camerate, Nicole Harkin, Tim Youssef, Scott Reed. Thanks all of you for supporting Cool Tools. And if you would like to have a shout out, go over to the Patreon page and sign up. And thanks for listening to the Cool Tools podcast. We'll see you next week.